I see the recording has started. 1 minute away. It is now 4 p.m. I'll keep an eye on the attendees before we get started. Hello, everyone that's just joining. I can see the attendees growing as we get initialized here in virtual format, and we'll get started around 4:01 or whenever the attendees number quits growing. I'm watching it intently. It's good to have you all here to attend the celebration. As a quick note to anyone that's just joined, thank you for coming. We'll get started formally in just a moment here. I'm still seeing attendees grow a little, and we want to give a chance for people to get settled before we get started. So for anybody that's joining, we'll give it maybe another 30 seconds or so to stay on time to let members who are just joining get settled. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I see that we have the attendees still growing a little, but in the interest of time, we are very excited to welcome you all to our annual Impact Celebration. We are excited to share our stories in terms of our fellows, our projects, and some of the innovative things that have been built along with you all over the course of this past year. I think it's worth noting before I get into the run of show and the virtual agenda that we take a moment to acknowledge that while we are celebrating the achievements of our fellows and the work with our sponsors and community leaders, that we are all facing major and pervasive, and in some cases unprecedented issues now across the community. And while we do want to celebrate, we know that we have a long way to go to change how we do things in the light of the new issues that we are facing. So I just want to emphasize that while it is a celebration, it's much more an understanding of what we can do if we come together to achieve things in the light of what we might have to face in the future. And so quickly, I believe that based on the registration list and of those who agreed to attend, that I might know each and every one of you, and maybe a little bit or a lot of bit. But at the same time, I want to level set and explain a little bit about the enFocus model and how we have grown this year to introduce then the specific activities of our fellows. So at enFocus, our vision is to be a leader in talent attraction and innovation. And so we achieve this by empowering talent to build stronger communities. And specifically, we do 3 key activities at enFocus. and you'll hear about those today. We recruit recent graduates as full-time innovation fellows, and we pair each fellow with sponsored projects across the civic and industrial sectors in the Northern Indiana region. And that is approximately for 70% of our fellows' time. And we actually have a unique third activity that brings the entrepreneurial into enFocus, which is we give 30% of fellows' time to spark innovation through incubation and piloting across business, social, and entrepreneurial ventures. So before I get into the run of show and turn it over to those who you might want to hear more from than just me, I want to talk about a little things that we've achieved over this past year to set the background for the stories that you will then hear. And so over the past year, we have exceeded the most amount of fellows that we've ever had, which is over 25 new, bright, and talented faces in this region employed as fellows through enFocus, where we started with just 7 around 8 years ago. Supporting the fellowship program, we have over 100 student internships fall, spring, and summer across local and regional partners to build a talent feeder system for our fellowship program and to get those in school, get their hearts and minds dreaming about what it would be like to have a career in this community. At the same time, we've achieved over 50 civic and industrial projects over this past year and know of at least 4 new startup companies or programs that have been developed as a result of our collaborations amongst our fellows and our sponsors and community leaders. I will also announce that historically we have focused on what we call civic sponsors or community leaders. And with a partnership with the University of Notre Dame, the South Bend-Elkhart Regional Partnership, we are building an industrial fellowship that will mirror and hopefully in the coming years be as big and as strong and as impactful of the work that we've done historically for our civic sponsors. So with that as a background, you all may have noticed that this event is virtual, a little bit different than we've done in the past. So I'll talk about our program setup, what the agenda will be, and a little bit of guidance on maybe how to interact virtually throughout this session. So we want to give a glimpse of those 3 activities: our talent, our projects, and the entrepreneurial and innovative things that we are doing. So we will start with a talent video showcasing just a few of our fellows and their stories, why they joined enFocus and what they have learned. We will then have several live presentations from fellows on some of our high impact projects across the region in St. Joseph, Elkhart, and Marshall County. We will close with a panel discussion from our fellows focused on entrepreneurial endeavors in the community, and then end with a short sponsor video. And so just a little guidance to the audience. I see we have quite the amount of attendees here. And so whether you're familiar with Zoom or not, we will ask you to try to have the presentation be in full screen. And if you want to have our faces present while we are actually looking at some of the content, we've tried to be mindful that you can put the face in the bottom right or drag and put it in the bottom right of the screen so it does not interrupt any visual aid that we do seek to have in this. So I'm sure you're probably sick of me talking already and want to hear from our team and all the work that we're doing. So why don't we turn to our quick talent video from just a few fellows from our 2019 and 20 cohort. And once again, thank you and welcome.
I went to the University of Washington and studied biology.
I studied at Earlham College and I majored in global management.
I studied neuroscience and behavior as an undergrad at the University of Notre Dame.
I went to Goshen College and I graduated with a major in business and a minor in accounting.
I went to Purdue University and got my bachelor's in industrial engineering.
I went to the University of Louisville and I studied economics there.
I chose enFocus because I really like to work with community and I really like to help out other people. I can work on a lot different diverse projects with enFocus.
I was really involved with the region as an undergrad and learned a lot about the passion and innovation that was happening in the region and was really excited to apply what I'd learned as well as continue to learn about how we can build a region through innovation.
The project I'm working on will help lower obesity rates amongst children in Elkhart County.
Through my interest in data analytics to make informed decisions and my passion in community health, we were able to really combine those two with a project with one of the local health departments.
I kind of just had to jump in, get my feet wet, and learn everything all at once. And in terms of enFocus, I think that really just displayed the culture of, maybe we don't know it now, but we're willing to learn it, and that's what we're going to do.
enFocus is positioned really well to understand how simple processes can really help amplify what individual community members are doing on their own.
The diversity of our teams gives them the ability to throw any sort of challenge at us, and we will come up with a creative way where we can show them everything from how we discovered a problem to how we started designing the solution and how we actually would implement that solution.
I think everyone really listens and supports one another and directs you to the resources that you need to make these big ideas into reality.
Through my fellowship, I learned South Bend-Elkhart region has a really large manufacturing population. A lot of companies were working in the industry, and there are a lot of resources that helps local entrepreneurs to start their own business.
So my 30% is a program that basically teaches kids how to break dance, and the point of it is to try and help them cope with childhood traumas or mental health issues, help them get over it, build confidence.
By connecting me to a lot of local business leaders, teachers, and school administrators, I was able to collect enough of information on what their specific needs are. And I was able to take that to a few other local partners who have helped me raise $45,000 in just 4 months in order to turn idea into action.
For me, the region has been really supportive of bright ideas. Instead of being really wary of new and potentially scary things, the region says, yes, let's do it. How can we support you to get things done?
And so at this point in time, I hope you're excited as for the video as I am. And so I will turn over to Allison Egan, our Program Director for Civic Innovation, and we will give her a moment to share her screen and start the live presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, and hello, everybody. Thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoyed that brief video about our talented staff. So now I'm excited to highlight a few of our sponsored or 70% projects taking place across the Northern Indiana region. So through these projects, we work alongside our sponsors to discover, design, and implement solutions to their toughest problems or brightest opportunities, using a data-driven approach to gather insights and an entrepreneurial mindset to develop and implement creative solutions. I'm gonna pull up my screen and I'll introduce our first presenter. So up first, we have Stephen Cabley, who will tell us more about his asset map project with the LIFT network to discover resources for regional business.
Thank you, Allison. As Allison mentioned, my name is Stephen. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Notre Dame with a BA in Industrial Design. I wanted to share with you about one of the projects I've been working on this past year at enFocus, which is the development of the LIFT Regional Innovation Asset Portal. This asset portal will be a resource for the LIFT network, which is an initiative supported by the Lilly Endowment, aimed at increasing the productivity, resilience, and talent of businesses in the region. Over the past year, I have worked with the South Bend-Elkhart Regional Partnership to develop an online tool that will link individuals, businesses, and educational or economic development institutions to technological and applied learning facilities and programs in the region for innovation and workforce development. Many of these assets reside in our regional universities and our workforce development nonprofits, and several of these resources are currently untapped by our region's businesses. So our goal is to enhance a regional innovation ecosystem here in the South Bend-Elkhart region and create a competitive advantage for our regional businesses by connecting them to these resources. So our goal ultimately is to create an optimized platform that will allow our users to easily find resources that align with their needs. To do this, we have researched best-in-class asset portal examples for regional innovation. And we've looked into regions such as the Research Triangle in North Carolina and cities such as Boston and Philadelphia that successfully foster collaboration between universities and regional businesses. Over the past year, we've developed a standard set of specifications and classification to organize the tool. And we've engaged a number of regional stakeholders in assessing the needs of the region and discovering new assets. And this has included anyone from our regional economic development corporations, the industry labs team at Notre Dame, and leaders from our local colleges and universities, among others. We have identified and collected data on regional assets, developed keywords and tags to make assets easy to find on the portal, and now we are currently engaged in developing this platform with a web developer, and it should be set to launch in the early fall.
Thank you, Stephen. So I'll be asking a question of each of our presenters, and the question I've got for you, Stephen, is in doing this project, what do you anticipate your impact will be on regional businesses?
Thanks, Allison. Good question. So one impact that I see this project having is really to provide more exposure to underutilized resources for R&D and thereby helping companies diversify or strengthen their product offerings through innovation capabilities. So as an example, if a company, let's say a local manufacturer, wanted to develop and test a new product idea that required tools that they do not own, this asset portal could help connect them to a research facility at a local university where they could collaborate on their idea. Another way the asset portal could be utilized is if a company or individual were looking to obtain a tech certification, and they could use the portal to search for a program that offers credentials that they're looking for, and ultimately leading to a higher wage, higher skilled workforce, which is one of the major goals not only of this grant, but of the South Bend-Elkhart Regional Partnership as a whole. And the last thing I should mention is that this will also provide a space for entrepreneurial resources to be aggregated for local entrepreneurs who are looking to develop their ideas into a business.
Awesome. Thanks again, Stephen. So next up, we have Pete Freeman presenting his work so far with the Goshen Public Library to discover community needs that the library can help to address.
Thanks, Allison. Again, my name is Pete Freeman. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a bachelor's in gender studies and peace studies and sociology. And as Allison mentioned, I'm going to give kind of an overview of my work with the Goshen Public Library's long-range planning initiative. So to kind of start with the big picture here, the main objective was to create a long-range plan for the public library in Goshen, one that satisfies all of the state of Indiana's requirements, of course, but then kind of goes beyond and really strategically positions the public library to meet not just the community needs, but communities' needs, really kind of identifying pockets of the community who might most benefit from some of the library's programming. To offer a little bit of background, Goshen has been kind of looking to strategically position, the public library has been kind of looking to strategically position their services, programs for diverse populations within Elkhart Township, which is the service area for the public library. And so how have we done this, at least so far? Well, in this discover phase, what we've done, a couple different things. We delivered a demographic report on, again, that Elkhart Township service area. We've also put together a best practice report on Indiana Public Library services and programs, looked at about 7 or 8 different public libraries programming. And then right now we're gearing up to administer a survey to the Goshen community. So kind of transitioning from our activities to the impact that we've seen already, yeah, we've kind of taken that data-informed approach to library programming. But we've gone kind of further and inventoried a lot of programs, services, as I mentioned, with about 77 libraries in Indiana. And we're looking to engage just over 100 Elkhart Township residents in our surveys to really gauge community needs.
Thank you, Pete. I know we've got a little ways to go on our strategic plan, but in this discover phase, it would be great to hear what is something cool you've learned through your research that will be important for Goshen Public Library to consider when we develop the long-range plan.
Yeah, so this has been just as much of a professional learning experience as it's been a personal learning experience. I think one of maybe the more surprising things that hits both of those two categories has been that almost fully 40% of children ages 5 through 17 in Elkhart Township speak Spanish at home. Spanish is the preferred language at home. And so this, of course, informs not just the language that we want to make sure materials and services are available in, especially children's and teen services, but also in terms of outreach, messaging, branding, making sure that that's communicated not just in English, but in a way that the vast majority of folks in the Goshen community, whether it's English, Spanish, Russian, maybe some other language, are kind of able to engage with.
Perfect. Thank you, Pete. All right, so that's our Discover projects. We're going to head into design projects next. First of which is Kate Flanley, who works to design a strategic plan addressing opioid use disorder in Marshall County.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. My name is Kate Flanley, and my background is in biology, and I have my PhD from Notre Dame, which I received last year in immunology and infectious disease. And so I'd like to share with you Project HOPE, which is harmonizing an opioid planning effort. So we were tasked with creating a strategic plan that addresses opioid prevention, treatment, and recovery needs in Marshall County. We partnered with Beacon Community Impact because they were awarded a federal planning grant that had 5 major deliverables. Those included creating a consortium of stakeholders, conducting a needs assessment that where we identified 14 gaps. We then addressed those gaps in the strategic plan. We also created a workforce and sustainability plans. All 5 of our deliverables were submitted on time, if not early, and with very positive feedback from our HRSA granting agency. So a couple of things that I'd like to highlight from this project is the fact that we worked with multiple organizations. So we were working with up to 32 different organizations, and they really came together during the planning grant process to build really strong products and deliverables, as well as they're taking that momentum and transitioning that into the implementation phase. They also took the strategic plan and turned that into an implementation grant application, and fingers crossed that will be awarded in August and would bring $1 million to combat the opioid crisis in Marshall County. Additionally, we organized an employer training event that encourages local employers to hire individuals in recovery and what are the best practices that surround that, as well as we are almost finished certifying 10 peer recovery coaches to help those individuals walk the path through recovery. And in September, we will be hosting a community forum, sharing all the good work of Project HOPE, as well as the resources available to those in need.
Unmute myself. Thank you, Kate. Fingers crossed indeed on the implementation grant. So the question I have for you is, with Project HOPE consisting of 32 member organizations, which is an extremely impressive amount, what are some of the benefits and challenges you face in facilitating a group of that size?
I will say that one of the biggest challenges when I came onto the project was that they had already met at least once. And so when I came on, I didn't just want to be a person that they received random emails from, but that they knew who I was. So I made it a point to really understand who each person was, what their organization was all about. And by the next meeting, I knew everybody's name, and then I was trying to learn something about each person. So that way, if they were sick for one meeting, I could ask how they were feeling at the next. And I believe that that helped with keeping people engaged and really feeling like they were a part of the group. And it was a great group to work with. So thanks.
For sure, Kate, and thank you. Next up, we have Hunter Guthrie, who will be talking about his work with Elkhart Community Schools to design an administrative compensation model.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. As Allison said, my name is Hunter Guthrie. I am a recent graduate of Hanover College with a degree in history and a minor in race and ethnic studies. And I had a brief background working in higher education. So for my project, as Allison said, again, I was working on a design initiative for Elkhart Community School Corporation, working to finalize an administrative compensation project. The project objective was, of course, to create a compensation model for their administrators that was more transparent, defensible, and competitive when compared to other districts. Some of the background that led to this project being created was an interest in more objectively allocating this district compensation funding as a means to attract and retain talented administrators. And so in order to complete this project, I focused on a few main activities, the first of which was to define the organization's compensation philosophy, which included 6 principles. I also conducted a pretty robust market comparison surrounding 10 similar districts. From there, I was able to analyze and evaluate the different roles and responsibilities of all the administrative positions and organize sort of 5 prioritized job components into rubric-based tools. And with all that information in mind, from there, I was able to recommend a complete compensation structure and procedure. Though the process isn't completely done, we have created some impact already. We're very nearly complete outlining this entire evaluation, objective evaluation process and these placement tools, which will lead to a transparent and defensible compensation structure and procedure, and ultimately greater employee understanding and satisfaction.
Thank you, Hunter. So I'd be curious to hear, what factors did you consider when building the new compensation model?
Sure, Allison, that's a great question. So as I said, we wanted to sort of objectively focus on these important job components. So when considering how these different positions come together, we looked at things like a position's expertise and education requirements, the decision-making discretion and impact of that position in terms of, what decisions a person could make and who these positions might affect. We also looked at the position's interpersonal relations. So with regard to the sorts of internal and external communications and interactions a person in this position might have. We also wanted to take a look at the position's supervisory capabilities and responsibilities. So not necessarily always the scope or scale of amount of employees that they would supervise, but more so the types of employees and the responsibilities those employees would have. We also finally wanted to take a look at the complexity of a position's responsibilities. So the degree to which a position might set goals for the district or point the way strategically.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hunter. All right, last phase, we're heading into some implement projects next. First of which is Andrew Schrank, who will be talking to us about his work implementing Commuters Trust in South Bend.
Thank you, Allison, for the introduction. Again, I'm Andrew Schrank. My background is in environmental engineering, and I received my PhD from the University of Notre Dame in 2019. I've been working over the past year with my enFocus colleagues on the Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge project in collaboration with Commuters Trust and the City of South Bend. This project aims to reduce transportation-related turnover for South Bend employees who are struggling to get to work, and we're doing this through an innovative transportation benefit program. A little background on this project, the Ride Guarantee program is our solution that we are delivering through subsidized commute rides through 3 different transportation vendors, being Lyft, Transpo, the local bus system, and a carpool system called Pitch. We're doing this over a 3-year grant period, and a $1 million grant that's provided by Bloomberg Philanthropies, which started in 2018. To accomplish the program goals, there are a lot of activities that enFocus is helping with that kind of span the spectrum of what enFocus does. But first, we are designing program benefits for the participants of the program. And to do that, we are also preparing marketing and communications content to share with the employers who we're partnering with to deliver these benefits to their employees. We're conducting enrollment sessions to get participants enrolled in the program, and then we're providing support to those participants through a text messaging program, and then also through a phone platform where participants can call in to get help. And then in terms of evaluating the program, we are collecting and analyzing data in regards to participants' attendance at work, and then also pairing that with the ride data to see how those in the program are using the rides and how it's impacting their participation at work compared to those who are not in the program. So the benefits we've seen so far from the program through just phase one in 2019 are over 5,000 commute rides have been taken and serving over 100 employees. We have worked with 6 employer partners throughout our program, and we've used 3 transportation partners. And this program again continues through the end of 2021 and is looking to have a sustainable program that is supported by both the employees and the employers.
Thank you, Andrew. So as I think we all know in one way or another, that the employment world, the workforce world has certainly changed as a result of COVID-19. So how do you envision the implementation strategy for Commuters Trust will change in a post-COVID-19 world?
Excellent question, Allison. And we had to start thinking about that immediately once we were all in quarantine back in March. And that started with enrollment, because in April, we were getting ready to roll out phase 2 of our program, which was going to include that carpooling program. And that made us think about how we can change enrollment to reduce or eliminate a lot of the touch points that we had that used paper waivers or flyers or in-person sessions where we would be touching participants' phones. And we went to developing some virtual enrollment content and ways that we can give the enrollees videos so that they can understand the program without us having to be in person and being there to touch their phones and touching papers. And then also thinking about future programming, we have started working on content where participants can look to get car ownership material. So whether they need help financing a car purchase or a car repair, we're trying to empower others to own their own car in case they want to avoid those in-person times when they might be carpooling or riding the bus or riding a Lyft, which I know a lot of people are trying to avoid right now.
For sure. Thank you, Andrew. Yes. So speaking of projects that took a major pivot due to COVID-19, next up we have Will Cernanek, who will be talking about implementing e-learning practices in South Bend schools.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Will. My background's in social science, and I went to both undergrad and graduate school at Notre Dame. I'm a second-year fellow, and I worked on this project with Chiste Karamati, who is a first-year fellow. Her fellowship had to end a little bit early this year because of some visa restrictions, but I want to make sure I give her the credit because she did most of the work. So last year, South Bend Community Schools decided that they were going to implement e-learning days for inclement weather this year. That essentially meant that during snow days, students would do online assignments, which improves the continuity throughout the school year, but also avoids having to make up days in the summer if they have a lot of snow days, as it happened the previous few years. So in the fall, we kind of mainly worked towards that. We were doing a lot of administrative and logistical activities, as well as doing some communications and kind of getting people prepared. We didn't end up having any snow days this year, but schools were closed for quite a while due to COVID-19. And so when that happened, rather than snow days, we kind of had to pivot a little bit because being closed for a couple months is a lot different than being closed for 1 or 2 days. And so the activities that we kind of mainly worked on after that was we developed surveys and then sent them out on a weekly basis to students, parents, and staff members. And then on a weekly basis, we analyzed and built some reports to kind of make some recommendations. So some of the things that we noticed kind of early on, for example, would have been a discrepancy between how long teachers thought assignments were taking and how long students and parents thought assignments were taking. We noticed students really kind of were craving and asking for more kind of like opportunities to video call with their teachers. Chiste also kind of did some professional development activities. She helped run 2 EdCamp events, as well as supported the rollout of a new learning management system called Canvas. Right now, we're kind of doing some final analysis and making some final reports for the schools because obviously this is still kind of top of mind as they're trying to be prepared this year for further closures, as well as kind of trying to take the right measures for reopening.
Thank you, Will. So how have you seen this project has positively affected the culture at South Bend schools?
Yeah, I love to talk about culture. I think one of the biggest things is, school corporations are big kind of complex organizations, and then e-learning was a big complex problem. So we really kind of had to work with, several different departments at the school corporation. So, curriculum, as well as technology, as well as the communications department, all kind of had to work really closely. And so, I think when anytime that different departments are working that collaboratively towards a kind of a common goal, I think that really, builds relationships across the district and overall improves the culture.
Most certainly. Thank you, Will. And last but not least, we have Maddie Rogers, who will be telling us about Holy Cross College's internship program.
Thank you, Allison. So, sorry for a little bit of the echo. I'm in the office right now. My name is Maddie Rogers. I just graduated last year from Purdue University with a degree in biomedical engineering. And I've been working with Holy Cross College Career Development to implement improvements to their current internship program. So currently, students at Holy Cross are required to complete an internship. Sorry, technical difficulties, one moment. Okay, I'll continue. So students are required to complete an internship in order to graduate. And that internship is a required course that is through the Career Development Office. So the Career Development Office has the onus of curating internships and opportunities for students, most notably in the South Bend-Elkhart region, but also statewide and possibly throughout the United States as students go back to their hometowns during the summer. So about a year and a half ago, Career Development did receive a grant from the Lilly Endowment to help sponsor paid internships for students, specifically in the South Bend-Elkhart region, and also to support office operations and some developments of what we've been doing. So with that funding, we have been able to host 10 different students across 7 different partners this summer alone, and we've sponsored about $20,000 worth of internships and have projected costs that exceed that for this next year as well with those same partners. Some other things that we've done this past year within Holy Cross include redeveloping their internship course assignments. We've also increased the amount of online content that we've had available for students and also increased the variety of career development resources and partners that we have within the college. Most notably, as you guys may know, Holy Cross College did go remote in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic back in about middle of March. And so since then, our activities have pivoted more towards developing this online content and also projecting student internship opportunities as we go through this pandemic together. So most recently, we have been working to support students whose internships have been canceled or have gone remote this past spring and during the summer. And we're working now to secure partnerships for and other projects for the fall and spring semester as we work through a hybrid environment in Holy Cross College. So it's been really insightful and very interesting to continue to be able to provide value to Holy Cross College career development even in the wake of this pandemic.
Thank you, Maddie. So I hope it came through for our attendees during a little bit of squeakiness at the beginning, but Maddie's academic background is in biomedical engineering. So Maddie, how has your background contributed to your success on this project?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have found interesting ways to use my engineering degree in a project that otherwise you may not expect it to be helpful. While I don't use the biomedical part, I do find ways to apply some engineering concepts to some of the activities we've done. For instance, at the very beginning of my fellowship year, I process mapped what it would take for a student to get an internship from when they first walk in and talk to our directors until they sign and approve their internship and then register for their course. And going through that process map to understand what each of the activities are, how many hours are expected, what are the documentation expected through each of those different instances in that process has been an example of how I've used my engineering degree. Also, just earlier today, we were on a meeting and got an assignment to work on a Gantt chart to plan some of our work for developing workshops and seminars for this upcoming fall. So there are little things here and there that pop up that I'm able to use my degree towards.
Awesome. Thank you, Maddie. And thanks again to all of our sponsored project presenters. Of course, we're also extremely grateful for all of our sponsors who continually trust us and work alongside us to innovate these impressive solutions for our community. So now I'll be turning it over to my colleague, Patrick Jones, who is our Program Director of Operations, who will be moderating a panel on enFocus's entrepreneurial ventures. Take it away, Patrick.
All right, thanks, Allison. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to do a little transition here, and we'll have a conversation with 4 of our current fellows to talk about how they've used 30% time here at enFocus. So just a little background. I know some of you might be familiar, but want to make sure I give a quick introduction on what 30% time is. Obviously, at enFocus, we strive to make an impact by helping existing organizations, and we kind of just talked through a bunch of project examples there about how we work with existing organizations to maybe innovate or make an impact. But we also strive to make an impact in the region by maybe launching new ventures or launching new community programs, social ventures, ways to basically put our fellows in a position to work on something they're passionate about to create something new and innovative in the community. So I'm really excited to hear from our 4 fellows to talk about how they've taken advantage of that unique opportunity that we provide here at enFocus. So we have 4 fellows who will kind of give an introduction on themselves and what project they worked on, and then I'll ask some questions to kind of dig into their experience over the last year. So first things first, we'll do some introductions and we'll get started with Kristen.
Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Small and I am a first-year fellow at enFocus. My academic background is I am a recent graduate of Purdue University with a master's in political science, and I am actually a current PhD student in public policy also at Purdue. Before coming to enFocus, I actually helped start a nonprofit, and I'm the current co-founder and COO of the Darnell Warfield Victim Advocacy Center, or as we call it, the DWVAC. The DWVAC would be a pioneer in the city of Elkhart. It would be the very first 24-hour victim advocacy center. And our mission is to help fill the gap and bridge the gap between crime and trauma and justice or healing, depending on the situation.
Mike, I think you're muted still.
I sure am. Hi, Kristen. Thank you. Kristen and I have a similar background. I also have worked in nonprofits, and last year I completed a PhD in theology from the University of Notre Dame. My project began with the pandemic. I knew that there were national and state resources that were coming online to respond. And I also knew that there were a great diversity of resources being developed and offered across Elkhart County. And I wanted to identify those resources and create a place where residents could go and see where all those resources were and the diversity of response across Elkhart County. So I focused on that county level and created elkhartcountycovid19.com. The website offers information on everything from when the schools were in session, e-learning, and when school lunches were available, to small business loans and grants that are available, to healthcare and mental health information. So really a great diversity of information to hopefully facilitate better communication and coordination in response to the pandemic across the county. Thanks.
Mike. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us and for your continued support. My name is Utkarsh Jain. My background is in industrial engineering. I completed both my undergraduate studies and my graduate studies at Purdue University. My 30% venture was the creation of a digital inclusion toolkit. It was brought to our attention that 30%, almost a third of city residents lack home access to internet and other technology resources necessary to kind of support social distancing. So we quickly partnered with the city of South Bend to put together this resource toolkit that helps connect these residents to low or no cost park and access locations of internet and device, as well as other digital training resources necessary during this coronavirus pandemic.
Thanks, Utkarsh. And my name is Mike Bogdan. I am a second-year fellow at enFocus. My educational background is in philosophy and nonprofit administration. Completed that nonprofit degree recently from Notre Dame. And I've used my 30% time to help lead a small Montessori program in the South Bend area. It's called St. Joseph Montessori School, and it serves 3 to 6-year-old children. And our target market is specifically Catholic homeschooling families. It is very difficult to provide the richness of the Montessori environment to just a single family, given all of the different materials that are required to educate in that kind of style. It also requires a specific certification and training that is not necessarily accessible to all. So we offer this sort of Montessori environment, and we also offer another sort of unique feature of us is that we families can sign up for 2 days a week, 3 days a week, or 5 days a week for mornings only. So it's a single 3-hour work cycle. Yeah, I'm the president of the board of this entity, and the time that enFocus has given has really helped me establish the organization and put some of those protocols and procedures and things that really make an organization run well into place.
All right, thanks everyone. As everyone can hear, a really diverse set of projects that our fellows have addressed here. And we'll ask some questions there about the projects, but before that, I just want to ask a general question about maybe how having 30% time as an opportunity at enFocus affected your decision to choose the fellowship. And maybe we'll start with Kristen. I think you might have a good response there.
Yes, thanks, Patrick. Actually, coming to having the 30% was a huge influencer in me coming to enFocus. I am originally from Elkhart, and I wanted to make sure that the DWVAC was able to get off the ground. And so I was a little conflicted on how to advance my career, my long-term career goals, as well as make sure that the DWVAC had enough time and energy to get off the ground. And so enFocus really provided the opportunity to do both. So I am still able to give the time and resources and use some of the enFocus resources to help get the DWVAC going and off the ground and give back to my community, while still advancing my long-term career goals and getting the rich experience of the fellowship.
I'll jump in here too, Patrick. I'd say that the opportunity to engage in the 30% project wasn't something necessarily that brought me to enFocus. I was involved with St. Joseph Montessori School when I came in, but I wasn't involved to the same degree that I am now. But that wasn't a problem for enFocus. They were like, you know what? We've got a great project for you to sink your teeth into. And they put me on this CPR mass training that we have been involved with. This was our 3rd year. Some of you sponsors on the call here are financial contributors. And we've trained thousands of 8th graders in hands-only CPR now down at Four Winds Field. And it was a really exciting event to plan and fundraise for and so forth. So even though I didn't have something, I was still able to hit the ground running and catch that entrepreneurial spirit that enFocus just exudes.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, I think those are 2 good, different examples of, we get a question a lot from incoming fellows. Do they have to have a business idea coming into our fellowship program to be a fellow or something like that? And, some fellows do have a project that they have in mind, but a lot don't. They want to, find that out through the fellowship, and our team works pretty hard to line up opportunities for our fellows to match up their interests in a way to make an impact within a year or 2. So thanks for sharing that, guys. So leading into the next question, I just want to give some context to our watchers here that we often say at enFocus that we learn by doing, and that's the best way to learn. So instead of maybe reading about startups in a textbook or reading about nonprofit management, we want you to get your hands dirty and get out there and try to learn some of that by doing it throughout the year. So my question for the panel here is, what skills have you been able to develop through your 30% projects? And maybe let's start with Utkarsh this time.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I think something that I have really able to hone in on and something to enhance was my communication skills, specifically stakeholder communication. I think this initiative of, putting together this resource guide was a cross-institutional effort. and to be able to kind of steer through and communicating the right information and also asking for the right information was very important for this to be a success. So that's something that I really learned throughout this whole process of putting this together. But also, I also got to play around with Google Maps and actually learning a fun new tool to create a map with concise information and making sure the information that is represented there is easily understandable for the audience that it's meant for.
I'll pick this up. Thanks, Utkarsh. Thanks, Patrick, as well. There's all kinds of skills. As Patrick said, you know, the learning by doing thing, it is, sometimes we use the analogy of drinking from a fire hose. You have to learn really quick. So when I shifted from CPR to using my time on the school, one of the first things I had to do was file all the incorporation paperwork. So I was learning about the nonprofit legal environment. Soon after that, I was developing our very first employee handbook. I've had to be negotiating salaries and creating contracts for our employees. And I think that another area, another skill that enFocus has helped me develop is on my 70% projects. I've been having to do a lot of financial forecasting, creating budgets and profit loss statements. And that has been really helpful for me as I'm looking forward to the new school year and the challenges that it faces and the changes that we've had in terms of enrollments. So the 70% practice that I've had, it's not practice, the 70% work that I've done has helped make my organization, St. Joseph Montessori School, stronger because I'm able to better forecast, you know, what sorts of revenue we're dealing with and what we can pay our staff. We do have 2 full-time staff supporting the school as well. So yeah, those are some of the areas enFocus has really helped me with.
All right, thanks. So we've talked about what you've learned and kind of why you came to enFocus, but let's talk a little bit about your experience working on your 30% initiative as a fellow. So question for the panel is, you know, how did enFocus support, or how did other community partners support you in launching your, you know, project or you know, making progress on your project? And let's start with Mike Altenberger this time.
Yep, it is good that I have this one first because both of my 70% projects are really out in the community. So when COVID hit, some time became available and I could have been shifted over to another project, but I really appreciated how different people in enFocus listened to what I was interested in doing and were pretty patient with the project evolving and finding its sort of right space and fit in the community. So not only was enFocus really supportive in terms of allowing me the time to build this, because it was a pretty heavy lift to collect all that information, but they also provided some financial support in terms of hosting the website and getting the domain name so that we could put it out there and really build something that hopefully people in the county could see the vision of it and what it was going for, and then see how they could fit into it as well. And enFocus hadn't provided the time and the space and the resources to do that. I don't think it would have been as successful as it has been. And then additionally, my favorite part about enFocus is the network and connections. So not only putting me in conversation with different people to get the best information and resources and hear about that so I could highlight them on the website, but also so that we could partner with different organizations and promote the things that they wanted to be promoted, and really try and facilitate that information and those resources. So it's been a great experience to see how one idea, if it's kind of connected in the right way, can really become something that's more than the sum of its parts.
And I can jump in here and build off of that too. The community, like Mike mentioned, is invaluable. There is nothing that really competes with the culture of enFocus on that. Other fellows have definitely jumped in and have really dug their teeth in to do DWBAC in ways that I didn't imagine would actually happen coming on, and offering support in a variety of ways. another big thing that happened just this summer with enFocus offering support was the interns. The interns were able to do a project working with the DWVAC where they helped create a grant database. We know from nonprofits, one of the big factors in predicting the success and longevity of a nonprofit is being able to have enough funds to support that nonprofit and that organization. And through this, the interns were able to help create a database to help know when we should be applying for grants, as well as writing and submitting a grant. We're pretty excited to announce that we'll be submitting a grant on Friday as a result from that project, and we're very happy and excited about that. But even more so than just those kind of things is being able to work and be around other people who have started nonprofits. I know that I have asked many questions from others who have kind of been in the same shoes as I have. I know from Mike or even Andrew talking about board development and some of those nitty-gritty details that people don't realize goes into creating a nonprofit. And lastly, being part of a successful nonprofit such as enFocus has really helped me create some goals and know what kind of culture I would like to have in my organization as well.
Cool. I think at this point we'll move on to the last question. Thank you for those great responses. I want to end here on the panel discussion with some comments on the impact that you've been able to see working on your project this year. So we'll just go through the panel and end on that note, talking about the impact. So Kristen, we'll pick it back up with you and just get started there. Can you talk a little bit about the impact you've been able to see so far?
Yes, especially from this year. I did not know when starting this fellowship year that the COVID pandemic was going to hit, obviously. But because of having this fellowship year, we are actually in a great position to launch sooner. We know that with rising crime rates due to an economic downturn, that Elkhart will have some of the support from our organization to help victims of crime and trauma a little bit sooner than anticipated.
The impact of the website has been really pretty surprising and varied in the sense that, for a website that was focused on the county level, it's been great that we've managed to have over 6,500 unique visitors to the website over the past couple months. And that sort of, the diversity of that traffic has led to a lot of different interaction too, from things as simple as people asking for specific information to be highlighted on the website, or for restaurants notifying us about carry out or dine-in being available. But we've also had people contact us asking about how they can be safer at work. Are there people that they can contact to make sure that they have the right equipment? To also people asking about how to respond and implement the mask mandate. So it's been a lot of different interaction that way. And then finally, we have a partnership with the Elkhart County Health Department. They are regularly posting their PSAs and other information through their Facebook site, but the website hosts the sort of history of that. So there's a whole list of the PDFs of all the different announcements that they've made. And most excitingly, the Elkhart County Community Organizations Active in Disaster is an organization that helps to facilitate the civic and service provider response when an emergency happens. And we've partnered with them to use the website and all the content on the website to help form a foundation for their work. So it's been great to see the different impacts that it's had across the community.
I think with my project, the biggest impact that I would say is that we identified a need and we did something to address it. Almost, as I mentioned before, 30% of our city residents lack access to essential internet and as well as like technology resources. So, just to give you an example, we've got 1,000 views on our digital map, digital asset map that we have created with our cross-institutional partners that kind of advertises the different publicly available Wi-Fi resources. We've also, with the help of our partners of the city, been able to disperse paper versions of these maps and other digital resources through school food distribution channels as well as food pantries across the city. So I think that's really impactful, really, especially during these times where we're able to support our community members in learning as well as working remotely, but also staying close to friends and family.
And I'd say on the St. Joseph Montessori School front, having been an educator myself in the Montessori system, sometimes it's hard to see the impact. That can be sort of frustrating sometimes. You feel like you're planting the seeds, you don't always see the fruit. But our mission is to cultivate a lifelong love of learning. And so while we are, immediately touching 20 children or so each year, we hope that they are going to be the future innovators and entrepreneurs in the South Bend-Elkhart region, and perhaps working at enFocus someday. So a big thank you to our sponsors for helping make these 30% projects actually a reality. Without your partnering with us on the 70%, we wouldn't have the time to do the 30%. So yeah, thanks.
Well said, Mike, and to the rest of our panelists, thank you for talking about your experience. Just kind of on a logistics note here, it looks like we're getting close to the end of our time. I do want to encourage everyone, if you can, to just stick around for just a few more minutes. We're going to transition here to a very short video from our sponsors talking about how enFocus has made an impact to their organizations. And then our executive director, Andrew Wine, will close with just a few remarks here. So it should just be a few minutes to close out, and we'll transition to our sponsor video.
We've had a long history with enFocus. They often bring in really flexible, versatile talent to solve pressing or new problems that often become institutionalized roles. We actually have quite a few people on staff that are enFocus alums. We've plucked them from the enFocus pipeline, and we've taken them, and they've been a part of our team. And so I'd say in the long run, that's been the biggest impact that enFocus has had.
We've worked with enFocus on a number of projects we've sponsored. I would say the one that's the highlight of all of them would be Vibrant Communities. The team all comes together for Vibrant Communities and has worked hand in hand with all of us to make sure that we have the very, very best outcome. We can sit around the table, we can have conversations with them, and it seems that always a point of view comes forward that we didn't expect. And that's what makes the project work. Defining the goals, reaching the goals are always the primary result of working with enFocus.
You've got the intelligence, you've got the enthusiasm. enFocus does a wonderful job of matching a problem in the community with the appropriate fellow or intern. It's a win-win situation. It benefits enFocus and it benefits the community. One of the projects that I remember was the CPR training. What they did do was take students and they taught them CPR, and they gave them the dummy to take home so that they could teach their families.
So enFocus is bringing in these graduates that are at the height of expertise in various areas, and they work with companies here in the South Bend-Elkhart region and move things forward. I think enFocus and the South Bend-Elkhart Regional Partnership are aligned in our vision of what we think the region will look like 10 years down the road. Everyone has access to great jobs, opportunities to fill the new jobs that are coming in the future as companies adopt new technologies, helping move our legacy manufacturers into the new economy with additive manufacturing or IoT or digital skills that are going to be needed in the future, because they're also bringing that talent here or keeping it in the region by connecting them with opportunities. You really can't understate the importance of investing in that generation of talent and making sure that it's there for the future.
So, wow, I have to follow all of that. I don't think I've ever been more nervous. And so in closing, I want to do two things quickly because I know we're a tad bit over time. But the first thing is to express gratitude to really multiple audiences, primarily our sponsors and the community leaders that have worked with our fellows, conferred trust and credibility to the stakeholders that may have been skeptical or not ready to take the advice of a young person, and to integrate our lives into yours to better this community. The second general audience that I need to thank is the fellows and all of the presenters and all of the individuals that have chosen to be in this community, to take part and take this risk. I think I can imagine with the backgrounds and passions and interests that we heard here, that our fellows could go anywhere in the world, but they chose to be here. And I hope that means something to all of us with that commitment and passion and interest to making this a stronger and better place to live. And so there is an individual I would like to thank that actually put this all together and is literally behind the scenes right now. Angie Kearns, our new communications manager, has, with ambition and grit and working through all kinds of adverse circumstances in terms of virtual and moving all marketing to a whole new mindset, has just really done wonderful things for us. So thank you, Angie, for organizing this and for this moment. So in parting, I recognize that I'm probably standing in between everybody and the rest of their evening. But what I want to offer is a vision. And so we had a vision when we first started this, and I'll tell you what I didn't know. I didn't know that we would help with opioid crisis, with COVID-19, with e-learning, with transportation, with industrial manufacturing. What we wanted was to have talent with purpose. And so what I want to leave everybody with is, what about the future? Whether we're solving issues to get back to a new normal, thinking about growth, thinking about building an innovation community. The purpose of a vision is to set a standard, a place, a time in the future that is beyond your means today. We can all do so in our lives, with our families, with our businesses, with our future. And so think of what we can do as we come together to solve the issues of tomorrow with that vision and unity of purpose for this region. So I'm very excited for the future. I'm very thankful for all of the work that the community has done to support these talented recent graduates, and I'm thankful for all the work that everyone here has committed. So thank you so much for being part of this Impact celebration, and we look forward to working with you all here in the future, and have a nice evening. Thank you.